Welcome to Module 1, Positive Classroom Environments. This module will focus on establishing and maintaining a positive FSL classroom environment. Key ideas include creating a welcoming and inclusive FSL classroom, school, and community. A glossary of terms to support FSL terms, strategies, and concepts can be found at the end of the viewer's guide for this module. There are 5 main goals for this module. Identifying strategies for creating a positive FSL classroom space to ensure our students feel safe and supported while learning French. Brainstorming support models for FSL educators on Rotary to support our educators in navigating the a la carte experience. Examining FSL community building and risk-taking to motivate our students to become lifelong language learners. Exploring supporting FSL beyond the classroom, for example, in school, board, community, and digital spaces to elevate French language learning. And discussing strategies for connecting FSL educators with families to support educators in developing strong relationships with students and families. Planning for a learner-centered environment. Establishing a positive FSL classroom environment is a collaborative process that starts well before the beginning of the school year. To set a positive tone from day one, FSL educators are encouraged to proactively plan for a learner-centered environment, meaning a learning environment that is responsive to students. To do this, they need to take steps to begin to know their learners even before they enter their classroom. Connecting with colleagues and consulting OSRs and other student data are helpful starting points to this process. A brief conversation with last year's educator and reviewing relevant student data, such as report cards, student learning profiles, and work samples, can certainly provide educators with a valuable starting point. From there, FSL educators can begin to plan what moves they will make to ensure that their students feel valued, respected, and empowered while learning French. FSL leaders can support educators with this process by actively advocating for or participating in year-end collaboration between French and English colleagues so that French educators are supported in taking a proactive approach to getting to know their students. FSL leaders can also support FSL educators in identifying and accessing relevant OSR data, such as English literacy report card data and IEPs, for example. FSL educators should be familiar with the transferable strategies and skills identified in these documents, as they are invaluable in helping them get to know their students. This collaborative, proactive approach to getting to know our learners, where programming is based on student skills and strategies are shared between teachers, is incredibly impactful and is particularly important in the context of core French because of the great number of students that a core French educator may teach in 1 year. By elevating educator collaboration and encouraging FSL educators to begin planning with students at the center, FSL leaders will help foster positive FSL experiences for educators and students. Creating a welcoming and inclusive space. When students enter an FSL classroom, they need to understand that it is a place of communication and collaboration, and they need to feel represented, safe, supported, and valued. Creating a welcoming and inclusive FSL classroom environment requires educators to reflect on a variety of factors, including how to set up their physical space. The physical space, whether it is face-to-face or virtual, should be organized and should facilitate interaction and collaboration. Students should be able to know where resources are, how to access them, and how to care for them. Class organization will help to foster a shared responsibility for class space and materials. Desks and other furniture should be arranged to support interaction. The classroom space should allow for movement and should promote mixed group conversation. If teaching a la carte or on Rotary, coordinate with the homeroom teacher to ensure there are areas in the classroom setup that allow for student-to-student interaction. Also consider creating a French-specific seating plan to ensure mixed group conversations are possible. More about navigating the a la carte experience will be discussed later on in this module. Ensuring the classroom space facilitates interaction is key because language is a social act, meaning we learn to speak and understand a language by interacting with others. The more relevant and relatable the interactions are, the more likely students are to remember them. In other words, French language learners need to see themselves as authentic social communicators. This means they need a variety of authentic interactive opportunities or learning opportunities that reflect what might happen in a real-life situation. These experiences will give them authentic ways to speak and listen to the language with their peers. Much like physical classrooms, digital classrooms should also be organized and structured to provide students with a variety of authentic communication opportunities, both synchronous and asynchronous. Students should understand where materials are stored and how to access them in their digital classroom spaces. To support students with this process, educators should model and provide opportunities for learners to practice navigating their digital classroom. Doing so will foster both comfort with the platform and help students develop digital literacy skills. There are many ways this can be done, including, for example, providing students with a pre-recorded orientation video and having them engage in a digital scavenger hunt to demonstrate their learning. To ensure that learning online facilitates interaction, educators should explore and make use of a variety of collaborative digital tools, such as discussion threads and brainstorming tools. When exploring these tools, ensure that they are in alignment with board and province student privacy policies prior to using them. Educators should also consider how they will make use of wall space. Wall space is invaluable when it comes to providing students with visual scaffolds and supports. When planning their face-to-face classroom spaces, educators should be mindful of how they will use wall space to provide their students with appropriate visual supports, such as anchor charts, visual word walls, and success criteria. Classroom walls are also invaluable when it comes to creating a space that is reflective of student voice, identities, and lived experiences. To feel truly included in a French learning community, students need to feel that their voices and identities are seen and valued. Educators should be encouraged to consider how they might use wall space to learn more about their students and empower their voices. For example, a small instructional move, like hanging a world map and having students identify places they share a connection with, can do a lot to help them feel that the FSL classroom is a shared space. Online classroom spaces should also provide students with these supports. Educators must also carefully consider how to select resources. Resource collections should be culturally relevant and responsive. Students should feel represented by the resources used within their classroom spaces. When selecting resources, educators should ensure their collection includes authentic texts that provide students with both windows into other cultures, as well as mirrors that reflect their own identities and lived experiences. Resources should also be varied, relevant, and accessible. Educators are encouraged to choose a wide range of text forms, formats, and levels that reflect a variety of topics. Curating a resource collection of this nature will help educators create accessible, engaging, and responsive learning for all students. FSL leaders can support educators in creating a welcoming and inclusive environment by being mindful of these key look-fors: supporting educators in actioning them, and making themselves available to educators as questions and concerns arise. A board list of FSL texts and websites for educator consideration is also extremely helpful when putting together a resource collection. Find out if such a list already exists within your board. If this list does not yet exist, looking at sites such as OMLTA or Transforming FSL can help support you and your FSL educators in making these decisions. Incorporating the FSL educator's lens when designing and implementing professional development is also invaluable to supporting them in proactively planning for an inclusive and welcoming classroom environment. Remember, FSL educators are literacy experts. Do not forget to elevate their voices and speak to their context during staff-wide learning. School leaders interested in more information on what this may look like may wish to connect with their FSL board leads. At this time, you may wish to pause the video to consider this question. Supporting FSL educators in navigating the a la carte experience. In the context of core French, or extended French or French immersion prep coverage, it is possible that FSL educators might not have their own classrooms to prepare. This is called the a la carte experience. The a la carte experience can be challenging. FSL educators may not have a place to put the teaching, student, and reference materials needed for their additional language class. The student seating arrangements may not be conducive for interaction in French, and factoring for the additional time it takes to move from one room to the next may be difficult. How can FSL leaders help educators navigate this obstacle? They can begin by fostering relationship building between FSL and homeroom educators. FSL educators on Rotary often feel isolated within their school environment. Promoting relationship building between French and English staff will help French educators find connection within the school community. Ensuring the FSL educator is invited to student profile, grade, and transition meetings, and ensuring school directions teams have the FSL voice in mind are some effective ways to build this cross-team connection. Promote collaborative teaching. Connecting with homeroom educators is vital for FSL educators, as they provide valuable information about learners, class structures, and routines, which can help FSL educators proactively approach classroom management. Homeroom educators also offer valuable partnerships when it comes to creating authentic and meaningful learning for students. Exploring a big idea in both English and French literacy, for example, can provide a powerful learning experience. It is important to highlight for students that the literacy strategies used in their first language to communicate are the same as those needed in the FSL context. Encourage the creation of a shared learning space. It is important for all staff and students to understand that classrooms are shared learning spaces. Ensuring this understanding will help FSL educators create a physical space that is conducive to additional language acquisition. Clarifying the location of FSL materials in the classroom, be it face-to-face or digital, and even using similar classroom expectations as the homeroom educator, can help to create consistency and support smooth transitioning between the FSL and homeroom classroom. Support educators in developing organizational and communication strategies. Preparedness is essential for FSL educators that are working a la carte. Educators new to this process could use support when it comes to managing their materials and time, as well as finding ways to connect with families. It is important to listen to FSL educators, understand their contexts, and brainstorm solutions together. Encouraging continued collaboration between colleagues will also support in this process. For example, pairing a new FSL educator with an experienced Rotary educator may help them discover new ways to more efficiently manage time and materials. A similar collaborative approach can also support FSL educators in establishing and maintaining effective communication with families. For example, class-wide updates from FSL educators could be included in monthly homeroom newsletters, and individual FSL student updates may be incorporated in phone calls home made by the homeroom teacher, if the feedback is also applicable to the homeroom context. No matter the solution, be sure that the FSL educator is an active part of the brainstorming process. Work together to build an inclusive school culture where French is seen, heard, used, and valued. When French is valued at the school level, students are more likely to value it at the classroom level, which will contribute to a more positive FSL learning environment. Find opportunities for the French language to be echoed throughout the school. For example, label school spaces in French and English, and include French in morning greetings and announcements. These simple actions can support the creation of a school culture where French is seen, heard, used, and valued. Supporting FSL educators in these ways will help them feel respected and valued, which will greatly enhance the FSL experience for their students. At this time, you may wish to pause the video to consider this question. Building FSL community and fostering risk-taking. The FSL curriculum tells us that teachers can provide a learning environment that encourages all students to take risks, to speak and write French without being afraid of making mistakes, since making mistakes is part of learning a new language. We also know that well-supported students feel safer, more ready to take risks, and more comfortable in their ability to tackle oral interaction in their second language. FSL leaders can support educators in building community and fostering risk-taking in a variety of ways, including the following. Emphasize the importance of knowing learners and building positive relationships with students and families. Connection is the first step to building student confidence. Advocate for collaborative learning that provides choice and empowers student voice. When students feel valued, they are more likely to share their ideas in French. Value clear communication and interaction in French over perfection. When students understand that progress in language development is demonstrated through practice and collaboration, not mastery, they will be more likely to participate in French. Model risk-taking and acknowledge that mistake-making is part of the learning process. Embracing a growth mindset will help students feel comfortable to take risks, make mistakes, and learn from them. This will help them become lifelong language learners. Promoting a growth mindset. Promoting a growth mindset is important as an FSL mentor to an FSL educator and as an educator to their students. Growth mindset describes the belief that success depends on time and effort put in. People with a growth mindset feel their skills and intelligence can be improved with effort and persistence. Listed are some of the core beliefs that people with growth mindset have as compared to people still living with a fixed mindset. Getting away from defeating thoughts like, I'm just not good at this, and I can't do this as well as they do, is key. Remind your mentee to have their students practice this mindset by adding the word yet to these types of fixed mindset statements. I'm not good at this yet, or I can't do this as well as she does yet. Naming the yet in French, le pas encore, also supports growth mindset in the FSL classroom. Work on naming what the student can do to help him or herself become more successful. Descriptive feedback is key in providing students with constructive actions they can take to improve upon their tasks. At this time, you may wish to pause the video to consider this question. Promoting FSL at the school and board level. When it comes to creating a positive FSL learning environment for students and educators, it is essential that FSL leaders find ways to promote French beyond the classroom. How can leaders support FSL educators in elevating the profile of French in their school and board? They can help their mentee by encouraging them with the following tips. Have your FSL mentee encourage questions and curiosity from colleagues about the FSL classroom. Have them share success stories often with colleagues within the school and colleagues from other schools. Encourage connection among staff and programs. The importance of connection between other educators and programs is crucial. French is an important part of each student's day. The French educator should know what's happening in other subjects and vice versa. Help your mentee to include French items in school communication and communication to the community. Help your mentee get to know their families and incorporate their cultures into the classroom. Seek out the FSL lead from your board and help your mentee connect with both them and FSL educators from other schools. Creating welcoming digital spaces. In this day and age, it's important for educators to create and maintain a welcoming digital space for students to access both from home and the classroom. Educators' digital spaces, much like the physical space in their classrooms, takes on the role of third teacher. When supporting an FSL educator in setting up their digital space for the first time, it is important to consider a number of factors. For example, what will you suggest for them to have as reference for students on their digital platform? What kinds of rich FSL activities or key information will you encourage the FSL educator to post for their students? Some students will excel and show more enthusiasm on digital platforms, while others may have more difficulties connecting with the learning. How will you help FSL educators to support all students in accessing learning delivered via digital spaces? The first step to supporting FSL educators in creating their digital spaces is to help them decide which platform they should use. To do this, discuss with your mentee which technologies or platforms your school and board currently uses with students and families. Encourage your mentee to have their digital platforms align with what families are already using if possible. This will help your mentee more easily support students and families in accessing and navigating their online learning environment. It will also have the added benefit of making online collaboration between colleagues that much easier. Once the online platform has been chosen, remember to continue to provide your FSL mentee with access to relevant ongoing professional learning so that they may continue to develop their own comfort with how digital spaces may be utilized to support FSL teaching, learning, and ongoing communication. Digital spaces are invaluable, not only for reaching out to students and families, but also for providing educators with ways to connect to a larger professional learning community. There are many ideas online for all FSL educators to consider. It may be valuable to suggest educators follow FSL groups such as OMLTA, Ontario Modern Language Teachers Association, CASALT, Canadian Association of Second Language Teachers, and ACPI, Association Canadienne des Professionnels de l'Immersion, a French immersion teachers group, so that they may share new and exciting learning and information with colleagues, students, and families. Supporting the FSL teacher to connect with families. No matter what grade they are teaching, remind your FSL mentee that each student in their class belongs to a family and that family is a partner to them in the classroom. Suggest that it's a good idea to begin the year with some sunshine calls or emails to families to open up a line of communication and to introduce themselves on a positive note. Sunshine calls throughout the year that focus on a student's use of literacy skills in French should also be encouraged. These calls will support families in better understanding how FSL classes support students in developing important transferable literacy skills, such as critical literacy, effective communication, and higher order thinking skills, all while learning another language. Communicating this important message to families is key when it comes to fostering both student and family engagement in FSL. Suggest to your mentee to keep track of what is talked about in some type of communication log in case they need to reference it at a future date. Be sure to mention that while mail may be easier to keep records of, sometimes a phone call conversation with a parent can go a long way with regards to getting to know students and having family support at home. Of course, there are many different systems of communication that can help FSL educators connect with families. When supporting FSL educators with communication, ensure that you talk to your colleague to discuss the strategies and digital applications with which families in the school are already comfortable. This should help the FSL educator choose which avenue of communication will be the best fit. Ensure they don't have too many different lines of communication to maintain. Have them keep their system simple, consistent, and straightforward, as this will make it easier for them to manage and for students and families to access. At this time, you may wish to pause the video to consider the following questions for the FSL educator. At this time, you may wish to pause the video to consider the following questions for the FSL leader. Your voice and feedback support the development of future professional learning series. Please take a moment to complete the following survey with your team. Should you have any questions about this module, please send an email to omlta@omlta.org. These modules have been created under the leadership of the Ontario Modern Languages Teachers Association, OMLTA. The OMLTA is a nonprofit professional association that has been supporting French as a second language and international languages educators of all programs and grade levels since 1886. Today, it continues to be the leader in professional learning and advocacy, inspiring and connecting Ontario's French and international languages educators. These modules were designed to support FSL teacher retention and recruitment by deepening the understanding of the directions, principles, and content of the Ontario curriculum policy documents for all three of the province's FSL programs: Core French, Extended French, and French Immersion. The OMLTA would like to thank the Ministry of Education for its financial support in developing this module. Special thanks is also extended to the educators who contributed their expertise and experience to the development of these modules.